Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Ah nah nah. Thunder. Nah nah nah. Nootropic thunder. Da na 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 na. Thunder. Da na 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 na. Man, I could listen to that all day. Celebrating. We're celebrating today. Nootropic Thunder, new article is out on www.coreyboutwell.com. Oh yeah! Yo! Alright, I'll get into it now. I just want to keep listening to the song and pumping it out. I'm super pumped. Yeah, Nootropic Thunder, new article on the website, man. I have spent, this is like a masterclass almost. I spent so long learning and going through all of these different things. It's one of the subjects that I facilitate my coaching is I like to call it Potions Masterclass is what we go over. And it's basically like learning all of the different potions and all of the good things for, to use for ourselves. And we've been using these, types of, using potions, nootropics. If you don't know what a nootropic is, essentially, I'm going to get the article up because I'm essentially reading you guys out the article today. And essentially, nootropics are sort of like cognition enhancers. And we have been using nootropics for, thousands and thousands of years. It's like just food. And we've been using just all types of different substances and herbs and things like that so we can think better. Caffeine, teas, matcha, like using all of these different things to optimize our brains and feel fucking awesome. Which is really cool. And it's come up time and time and again since like the ancient times, in the story of The Witcher. If you guys have read the Witcher books, like even I know you've seen the if you've seen the TV show on Netflix, so like he's always taken potions to enhance himself. Is in the books is that like the witches are like potions masters and they make all these crazy kinds of different potions and stuff to get themselves as optimized as best as possible. Go out there and slay some dragons, on that hero's journey. And we've just been using them, like the stories of the witches making potions, the stories of Merlin making potions and all these things, like we've been using for ages. Ancient people in the pyramids, Egyptians, from the Indian culture, from Viking culture, mushrooms and all types of crazy weird shit. And we've been using all of these different types and things, psychedelics, cognitive enhancers, all different supplements and stuff to increase our performance somehow, some way. Make us feel good for healing. Old ancient shamans and different things, different roots and herbs to sort us all out as best as possible. And so I thought that I would spend a lot of time researching and coming up with looking at some of the best people that I know how to use, because I've had the questions like, Corey, can you help do a podcast on nootropics? And I was like, well, I use like a lot of different natural stuff, so I'd love to get my type of stuff out there. Now, one of the last podcasts I just did was a supplement podcast. Please listen to that before this one, because that explains how I go through and select and buy supplements and choose supplements that are best for me, because it's the exact same thing when it comes to to buying nootropics. Has the exact same process for that. So I'm sitting here, I've got my decaf. We listen to that stuff, and I'm going to kick you guys off with the Friedrich Nietzsche quote. Strap yourselves in and listen to this entire podcast. You're going to learn a fucking shitload. I learned so much. I've been researching like crazy. Take notes if you need to, if you really want to highlight onto anything, but know that I've got that podcast. I've got to the article on CoreyBoutwell.com that has everything on here. And this is from podcasts, this is from books, this is from a whole bunch of different research, this is from PubMed studies, this is from I went crazy to come up with all of this. And as I was writing it out, I really wanted to dive deep into the actual nootropics themselves. And as I got through, I was like, oh man, it's too comprehensive. Like it's so overwhelming, the amount of study, the amount of content, the amount of nootropics, like, oh my God. So I just got over the main stuff, giving you guys some crazy principles and some big knowledge bombs in regards to using these things. Because regardless of if you're having coffee, like you're using nootropics. So yes, I have a little sip of this decaf and then we'll go ahead. So, it's a quick start. Starting off with a Friedrich Nietzsche quote. Now, as I said, listen to this whole damn thing, even if you have to come back to it, because you're going to learn so much. And if you want to take advantage of this, I have a recipe ebook in one of the links below hand that has all these different bone broth potions, matcha potions, and things like that that are really, really, really handy for you guys to use. And I'll be going through a lot of the main points in this podcast. So strap yourself in. We're in for an awesome one, guys. I'm excited to do this with you. So pumped, celebrating. It's good. So Friedrich Nietzsche quote. He who taught to bless also taught to curse. The three most cursed things in the world are sensual pleasure, lust for power, selfishness. He who never defends himself has the nature of a slave. I like to, whilst you're listening to this Nootropic podcast, taking notes down, taking steps to do, taking ideas down, learning all these different things, keep in mind, because Nootropics, we have access to these things and we don't use them enough, I think, but obviously it's handy because Nootropics are sort of like drugs, cognition enhancers, softcore drugs. There are some harder ones as well, but essentially they're drugs and they can be abused and they can increase your sensual pleasure, your lust for power, your selfishness, and then you're also, if you don't defend yourself against all of these things, then you can become a slave to them. So, Friedrich Nietzsche back at it again with the good quotes. The three most cursed things in the world, sensual pleasure, lust for power, selfishness. And the quote, he who never defends himself has the nature of a slave. We don't want to be a slave. And we don't want to fall victim to all of those different pleasures. So, whilst we go throughout this podcast, I'd like you to think of those things while we do so. Now, my way of going about things, as always, is always making sure that I'm doing the natural, organic, bioavailable food stuff beforehand. If you listen to my last podcast, I like to go through that before I choose anything else. Always choose that first. And then we can go through some good stuff. And I've got a couple little subs here I'm going to show you that I take, and I'll list out my full stack that I've currently got towards the end of the podcast. So you're going to have to listen for that. And we'll go from there. Now, don't skip over anything. Like, this is all crazy shit. So firstly, I like to say, nootropics don't treat dumb. They will not make you smart. You want to get smart and as healthy as possible. Before even trying nootropics, it's the same thing as I said in the supplement podcast. If you're taking subs or nootropics, they are not a mask. You should not be masking. You should not be taking those unless you have a really good sleep routine, you have a really good eating routine, you have a really good movement routine, you have a good hydration routine, and you're killing it. Once that's set up and you take nootropics, you send yourself to the goddamn moon of just fucking feeling amazing and getting shit done. And I do notice myself when my sleep goes and all this other things goes, I will step back. I'll fast. I'll step back from coffee, I'll step back from nootropics, I'll step back from even vitamins and stuff. Just let my body do its thing with the best food, rest, ice bath, sauna, sweat, move as much as possible. Even when I'm sick, I'll just, if it's to the point where I can't do anything, I'll just walk as much as possible, whatever it is, just to get my blood and body moving, to heal it all up, get myself back to what I like to call an equilibrium, when I'm just feeling fucking great. And then I'll add in all the extra stuff again and feel even better than great. It's just, man, it's a good way to live. It's a good way to live, I'll tell you that. So, Friedrich Nietzsche quote again has got in the article here is, when you stare into the abyss, the abyss stares back into you. And I think that makes sense with just these nootropics, because, you know what I mean, essentially you could call like cocaine a nootropic because you get your dopamine cranking, and that's going to fuck you up. So, over a long period of time. I don't want to discount people that are having, some fun in the party drugs. They're definitely due where they're due. But at the same time, if you're using them like a nootropic, see you later. You're not going to last very long, are you? But anyway, the simple definition of a nootropic is forward mind. Mind forward. As in, I'm not sure exactly what part, but nootropic means forward mind, which means actually in your mind is getting more enhanced. So, here we go. To find the right nootropics for you, it is first most important to understand how your own brain chemicals work and knowing your personality and lifestyle enough so you can choose the correct nootropics for you. This is so goddamn important. Nootropics are sort of essentially drugs, and they work with all your different brain chemicals and your neurochemicals and all the rest of it. So I've got 3 things here and 3 resources in this article for you to use. And this is so important. If you like, you can listen to the Muscle Intelligence podcast, episode 18 with Charles Poliquin, because they talk about in there going over this test called the Braverman's test, and you can do that. And what you can do with the Braverman's test is essentially breaks up how your brain works with a questionnaire. You sit a quiz, and it talks about things that you do, decisions that you make, and it helps you decide if you are dopamine dominant, GABA dominant, serotonin dominant, or acetylcholine dominant. They have got the 4 different neurotransmitters, and it shows up, how you do in your life with your quiz, what you use. Now, this is most important for you when it comes to taking nootropics, because nootropics are either going to affect some of these neurotransmitters way more than others. And for example, if you're someone who is very high dopamine dominant, you may not need to have any dopamine nootropics. You might not need to even have like caffeine, because caffeine gets your dopamine cranking. You might not need to have any of those. You might need to have something else. You might need something like, if that happens to you and you're a type A personality, and you take some type A, some of those other dopamine things, you could crash. Or you find out later in the day, you might find it hard to get to sleep, especially if you don't use up all of your dopamine. So you might need a serotonin booster for a nootropic instead, which is really handy to know. Number 2 is learn your personality type. Depending on what you're doing, there's a test here. You can go sit the test, look at your personality, look at the strengths and weaknesses section. This stuff is so important. Nootropics, I said, are basically a softcore drug if you're not doing the food stuff, basically. So you want to optimize that as best as possible, get really clear, because otherwise you're just going to be playing with your neurotransmitters. And I can tell you right now, you don't want to do that, because you can seriously stuff yourself up. Or if you want to be elite all the time and show up consistently every single day with the courage of a hero to go out and crush your life and make some damn impact, you can't afford to have days where you're feeling like shit or something didn't work. So do the work beforehand. Literally do this. Do these exercises. Take the notes, do them. The 16 personalities, the link in the article, 16personalities.com. Find out your personalities, look at your strengths and weaknesses, and understand like, this type of neurotransmitter, some serotonin, some dopamine, some choline, some GABA, these different types of neurotransmitters may be beneficial to me if I up them a little bit by doing some things. Really handy for you to do or learn. And then also, with the number 2, the personality test is to also just know a lot about yourself. Think about your environment, your stress, what is currently happening, how you're training, how you're exercising, how you're sleeping, all of these different things, and just prioritize, okay, currently at the moment, what is the most important, you could say, way of living is going to be best for you right now. There could be a nootropic for that. There may not be. You're best off maybe by not taking any right now. Or maybe I'm taking some right now, don't need to take any. Or right now, like, game on, let's go. Let's go out and get some, crush some stuff. I need to be focused. I need to be zen. I need to be meditating. I've got like a point in my life right now. I need to be personally and spiritually developing. So I'm going to be taking a lot of matcha and a lot of, doing a lot of meditating and things like that. Or you go, I've got a lot of work to crush. Like this week we are on. So I'm going to be caffeine. I'm going to be using dopamine nootropics to get myself to go out and crush stuff. Really important to know. Number 3 is do your research and do in-depth research. I have 2 links on this article that you can use. Examine.com literally goes through. You can click on any nootropic. They've got them all there. You can go through and it has all the different cons and benefits in like a big graph that's so easy to know. It's like dopamine receptive, works like this. These are the side effects. These are what the temporary feelings that you're going to have. This is how long it's going to last for, blah, 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 for each like nootropic, bum, 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 bum. It is such a good website to do your research on, especially if you've done your Braverman's test, you've done your personality test, you understand your stress in your environment. You go on there, have a look. You may even just have 3 nootropics. You're going to be like, oh yeah, I'm going to try those. And chances are is you're going to be a lot more accurate for nailing them. You may find out they do work or they don't work, but if you're doing this research and you're putting this stuff in, a lot of the time you're going to be like, just imagine if you could just get down to one nootropic that was natural, that was actually really healthy for you, that upped your game by 10%. What would that be worth to you? For some entrepreneurs and some high performers and athletes, millions of dollars. And that could all come down to, basically having a good sleep, doing all the other things, and then just adding that little bit on top. Ooh, fantastic. Someone who I really respect, Lucas Allen, Australian guy who's done like the most amount of studying for nootropics. He has a course you can actually go out and buy, which is actually ridiculous, but his website's good too, Ergogenic Health. And I've linked that in there as well because he has descriptions to a whole bunch of nootropics and where you can get them, as well for what I like to label the naughty nootropics. If you want to go out and get some of the naughty nootropics, you can go there, and he has the best places and contacts for the real good natural ones as well. So like my man, super proud of that guy. He has a podcast with Ben Greenfields. If you just type in like nootropic into Spotify or something and Ben Greenfield stuff come up, he will be there talking about all the good stuff. So nootropics definition means forward mind. They're essentially drugs and supplements and other substances that are claimed to improve cognition function, particularly executive functions, memory, creativity, motivation in healthy individuals. So that's the main first part of the definition. And at the end there, they haven't left out. It says in healthy individuals. Get healthy, then use nootropics. While many substances are purported to improve cognition, research is at its preliminary stages as of 2021, and the effects of the majority of these agents are not fully determined. Yes, so there needs to be a whole lot more research done. However, I believe there's some good stuff, especially for the natural ones. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's some real obvious things that are out there that you can use. Now, nootropics are also commonly known as cognitive enhancers, meaning a greater ability to acquire knowledge and understanding through thought, mental actions, experiences, through the senses, which is really important. All senses: smelling, hearing, listening, seeing, tasting, touching. Yes, so cognitive enhancers making all that experience better. So why use nootropics? So it is important to know that nootropics may be a relatively new term. However, the natural ones have been around for thousands of years, as I was mentioning beforehand. It is also important to know that the nootropics are not just sups, pills, liquids, and blends. You know, they have been used since ancient times as rituals and ceremonies, and were often a way of living simply through eating food, diet, and drinks. Like literally, they're incorporated into people's diets and stuff. Like even here, I was going to, as an example, if you can't see, I've got some Panax ginseng, which I got from like a Chinese grocery, or I know not Chinese grocery, just an Asian grocery. And you've got the Panax ginseng instructum, and it was like $16 for 30 vials. Now, if you know anything about absorption, you listen to the supplement podcast beforehand. If you haven't, please go back and listen to that quickly because there's a lot of stuff in there. But anything that is in a liquid or a fat soluble form gets absorbed so much better than anything else. Like way, 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 way better than just a pill or a bloody powder. And this is in a liquid. You have a little vial and you suck it, you just poke it with a straw and you get a full hit of Panax ginseng. It's like, hell yeah! I want some of the adaptogenic herbs up in my system. So this is an example they've been using for thousands and thousands of years, like they have here. This is like ancient Chinese medicine, and it's funny because I don't know however many years ago, from the research that I've been doing, people like even ATP Science guys and stuff are like, and Paul Chek and Ben Pekulski and Wade Lightheart and a few of these guys, they keep talking about like how 30, 40 years ago, there was no study in sciences for Chinese medicine. But the Chinese medicine kept working, but they were never promoting it because they haven't had any studies that prove that it worked, or they didn't have the science to prove it. Now they're just proving like all the ancient Chinese herbal medicine just fucking works like a charm, hey? So I think that's just really handy that we can use some of these things. But obviously for some people, Panax ginseng is not going to be good. And for some people it works well. I am loving it. I had 2 vials today. Feel fantastic. Especially for this podcast. So they were in our daily diet routine. They have also been used by ancient herbalists, traditional Chinese medicine masters in order from, different healing, optimization, learning, coffee, green tea, matcha, Chinese herbs, Ayurvedic medicines, like all of those things are just great examples of that type of stuff. So what do they do? Essentially, nootropics first referred to the chemicals that met very specific criteria. But now it's used to refer to any natural or synthetic substance that may have a positive impact on mental skills in general. Nootropics fall into 3 categories, and that is dietary supplements. Number 1, should always go the dietary ones first. Number 2, synthetic compounds like tyrosine. I've got some bulk nutrients tyrosine right here. You can see that if you're looking in the in the screen right there. And then 3 is prescription drugs, things like Adderall, Modafinil, Ritalin, things like that. The research is still inconclusive on exactly how they work to stimulate the mind, but this early research indicates that it acts on a variety of different systems within the body at the same time. Because obviously, food's got so much different stuff in there. Everything we eat gets absorbed into our bloodstream, and if it's activating and sending a whole bunch of different things off, depending on our DNA, depending on our stomach bacteria, blah, 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 blah. Crazy. So one explanation is that they may increase blood flow to the brain, which allows the brain to use more oxygen, which is really cool. Now, I may seem like I've got a lot of energy right now. I literally have not had a coffee today. I have had, I'm just going to say real quickly what I had beforehand. I had a mug that had a big spoon of matcha in there, and I like to use, I've got this, you can see it's up here, I Thrive Organic, how it sounds. So little I, all lowercase, iThriveOrganic.com. You can go get their matcha. It's the best matcha ever. So I mix that with a bone broth and some beetroot extract, and then I use this, what's the brand called? I really forgot this. Super Feast is the brand. And I use their neural nectar. One of my buddies, Michael Kettle, bought me that as a present. How kind, because he's an absolute goddamn legend and really like the stuff. And I mixed some of that together. And then I had a vial of ginseng, and I feel fan-fucking-tastic. It did get us good sleep last night too. And I used a sauna and ice bath this morning. And I had some liver I ate today. I had duck eggs today. I've had a whole bunch of veggies. So we're on. We feel good. Hydrating too at the same time. Getting all in there. I'm just using it as an example of stuff how I use myself. So just in case you guys are thinking. So one explanation is that may increase blood flow to the brain, which allows the brain to use more oxygen. So what I like to say this is you can also use a NOS booster for this. If you listen to the supplement podcast beforehand, I talk about NOS boosters, essentially anything that increases the use of nitric oxide in your body. So nasal breathing is number 1. If you're breathing through your nose, NOS goes crazy, way better blood flow. That's essentially what NOS does, increases blood flow through your whole body. Now you can use different things for this, like a lot of pump products have them, like gym pump products. Citrulline malate is one of the main things, and then anything that stimulates nitric or nitric oxide. Now you can get, like I've got here, is some beetroot extract, and you can see how from House of Health. And it's just this red crazy stuff that we've got there. And it doesn't taste the best, but you put it in stuff and you're like, it's not too bad, it's not too bad. But literally it just increases nitric oxide like crazy. Before a gym sesh, nuts. The ability to get an erection, crazy. But in talking in terms of blood flow, one of the things that we want to do is get into our high performance brain. That's the reason we use Nootropics. The main purpose for them is for cognitive enhancement. Now, to use cognitive enhancement and high performance, the first things first is we need to get into a high performance brain. How do you do that? Well, we've got 3 parts of our brain. We've got our reptilian brain, which is our fight, flight, fright, freeze response brain. Essentially, if you're backing out of a driveway and a kid's riding past on a bike, you're just not going to think about it. You go, fuck! And slam on the brakes really quickly. You're not going to go, I'm thinking about what's he wearing, blah, what's he doing, trying to get in a high performance analysis. Then we've got the next brain is our emotional brain, or our monkey brain, which is called our limbic brain, which is where all our emotions come from. And then as humans, only humans and killer whales have this part of our brain, is the prefrontal cortex. And we have the biggest, most developed prefrontal cortex, which is our high performance analytical thinking brain. Essentially, we have to get past being a reptile, we have to get past being a monkey to allow ourselves to get into the prefrontal cortex, the smart part of our brain. Now, what happens though is that the limbic brain and the emotional brain are 5 times more powerful and 5 times more strong than your prefrontal cortex, and they would just get light up. Your brain checks for threat every 5 seconds, and that's them parts. So you need to be in a really optimized position. Hence why meditating and old school people used to have matcha tea ceremonies and coffee ceremonies and cacao ceremonies and all these things where there's no danger. It's a group setting intention, so the energy is a lot higher and everyone would just sit there, meditate, hum, chant songs, pray, do things like that, so they can get into that spiritual part, the prefrontal cortex of that brain, and really activate sort of spiritual thoughts. What could I do to be better? What do I need to have in my life? What's the most important thing that I need to be doing right now? How can I connect spiritually to my friends, family, all these things? They would do all of those different ceremonies so they can get into their prefrontal cortex, just so they can figure all this stuff out, which we don't get an extreme chance these days. We kind of just rely on caffeine and stuff to get through the day. Now the thing is caffeine it is a nootropic, but at the same time, it gives you the feelings of alert and awake. And I'll get into this deeper a little bit later. It doesn't exactly get you into high performance though. High performance is calm, zen, and focus. Can you see the difference? Because you've got to get into your prefrontal cortex. So if you are having some other supplements that are going to help you get into that prefrontal cortex, then you are taking advantage of nootropics. You are going to have better memory, better learning, and that's why we should be using them. We shouldn't be using them to get a buzz, because if you wanted to use them to get a buzz, go to a party. Go to a party, get out your system. Nootropics should be used to help you crush stuff. Now, the thing is you can find little blends of both. A little bit of caffeine, a little bit of L-theanine, matcha, whatever it is. So you get a little bit of up, and then you can allow you to get into the focus, because you should be using them for high performance. And high performance brain is our decision-making brain at the front here. So that was a little intro to stuff. Now, what I was saying for that is what helps the blood flow is stuff like just a beetroot powder or a NOS booster. That's not a nootropic. That's not a nootropic at all, that beetroot powder. However, if you take that and you get more blood flow into your prefrontal cortex, essentially it's almost works like a nootropic, because you're performing higher. You're thinking better, bigger erections, better blood flow. Like, how good is that? So, important. Also, some nootropics may raise the body's adrenaline levels and produce effects similar to drinking large amounts of caffeine, which means people can stay awake for extended periods of time. Yes. So, where was that? I was just checking. I wasn't sure if I was recording for a second. Then I was like, oh, am I recording the audio for this? Okay. So, NOS boosters, staying awake for a period of time because of adrenaline levels, which can be done. So some nootropics can increase adrenaline levels. Some drugs increase the number of certain chemicals and neurotransmitters, such as dopamine, which are released in parts of the brain associated with dependence. That's why men get so addicted to cocaine, because it releases dopamine. And men thrive dependence. No, not dependence associated. They thrive with independence. So, which is very good. Dopamine means released in the brain associated with dependence, means sometimes people depend on dopamine things. So you can see, guys, people get addicted to stuff like cocaine, they get addicted to caffeine, they get addicted to things like modafinil, blah, 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 because they feel like dependent on them and they can't be themselves without them. So that's an example. So important, nootropics work simultaneously using different brain and body chemical pathways. Very interesting. It is important to know which nootropic you want to use and when. Absolutely. It is also important to know when using a type 1 nootropic that you are borrowing from tomorrow's energy if you do not facilitate or experience effectively or carefully. Now, I'll get into this a little bit later, but what is important to know is that I like to break down, like personally, to make it easy for you guys, we're breaking down the nootropics into 2 different types. Type 1, which is because you have 4 different types of dopamine, we'll get into later, but there's 2 different dopamine pathways your body runs off of. One is alert, awake, crazy, boom, 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 let's go, no, like this, right? It's very hectic. The second type of dopamine that your body uses, which is called type 2, is very zen, memory, locomotive. So that is the second one, which is, I would say the type 2 is the more of the high performance, for sure. Type 1 would be better for going to the gym. Type 2 would be better for, studying, focusing, or like using a little bit of mix of both when you go to the gym in order to get like a good mind to muscle connection. So, thought bomb here. As you may be aware, your neurotransmitters, stomach bacteria, and genetics are completely different from everyone else's. Therefore, different nootropics and blends will affect you differently than everyone else. Hence, it is so important to use single nootropics to find out what works best for you and then slowly add in small blends together that work best for you in order to get optimal results. So, what I'm saying here is find single nootropics and try the single stuff. Don't get any blends. Try not to use any supplements that are like full of different nootropics. Like, get this nootropic stack, get this. Try the individual ones first. Like later on, I'll go through and just literally show you the main ones, because there's like 4 or 5 main ingredients that people use in a nootropic stack. And they're in all of them. Then they just add extra different ones in there. So like, watch out for them. And I've done the research. I looked at Onnit's product, looked at optimized products. Theirs actually a little bit different because theirs is a lot of other stuff in there. Thorn's product, iHerb, all these other different big brands that they use. And they've essentially all got the same stuff in there. Bulk nutrient stuff. So find the best single nootropics that work for you and use those. Because seriously, it's just, yeah, it's the most important way. If you get one thing out of this, it's don't use nootropics in a stack together. Try the single ones and then add them around. Like for me, as example, I've got some tyrosine here. I've got that Panax ginseng here. I've got my beetroot extract here. I've got my I Thrive organic matcha here. And I've got like these I've got like a stack of mushrooms here, but essentially I'm just like mushrooms is just the same or one thing there. But I'll go through the ingredients of this one later because it's got some other stuff in there. But as I said, that was a present. So, and an awesome present. I love this stack. Not anything against that. I love that stack. But I definitely always get the single ones. And I've got like some bone broth there. So use the single ones first. Don't go out and get the blends. Figure out what works for you. Nootropics are intense. So what to watch out for is actually limit caffeine. Like sugar, coffee gives you temporary energy boost, but it can deplete your dopamine in the long run. So minimize coffee consumption or switch to decaf to counter dopamine deficiency. So 3 things here, right, guys? So if you haven't listened to my coffee article and on caffeine and my podcast, I have an article and a podcast on it. Go back and listen to that. The coffee one will blow your fucking mind. I go through so much stuff on there and use different things about how you can actually use caffeine as best as possible and optimize it. The second one is Pod Life Coffee have a awesome decaf. Like, oh my God, it's so good. Even I had one of my mates around last night, Frosty Friday, and I made him decaf. I just did one little short hit from the little one because 2 equal 1 espresso, like 2 pods. So I just did one, I did the short, and then the other one I did like a long. And he was having a sip. He's like, "Oh, that's not bad." He's like, "That is not bad at all." I'm like, "No, it's not bad. It's fucking sick." He was like, "God, it's so good." I was like, "I know." So that's awesome. Or if you want to go, the next decaf option is look for the Peru Organic Fair Trade decaf. It should be sort of all around coffee bean stores in Australia. Or anywhere else. The Peru Organic Fair Trade decaf is crazy good. And you should be able to find it because they're one of the only best decafs that you can get. Especially, like, it's the only fair trade one you can get that I found anyway. Sorry about that yawn. Not breathing from my nose as much, but I can't do that when I'm talking. The second thing to watch out for is a magnesium deficiency. So yeah, seriously, caffeine like depletes your dopamine, and you want to be using dopamine as best as possible for all of these. Like, you got those 2 different pathways. You want to make sure that your dopamine is fucking stacked and that your receptors are receptive. Taking things like modafinil, heaps of caffeine, desensitize them and deplete the dopamine. So there's 2 there. You can like basically desensitize yourself to dopamine and to the receptors, and you can reduce the amount of dopamine you have. You want them both really damn high. So then when you start using things like if you've got adequate amount of dopamine, which obviously your prefrontal, it comes around one of the dopamine pathways, right? It's really interesting. I haven't put in this article, but it comes from like the middle of your brain where all the good stuff is, like right in the middle of your head, and sends these signals to your prefrontal cortex. Sends them to the front of your brain so that you can use them as best as possible. So if you just have like if you've got healthy dopamine receptors, healthy amounts of dopamine, and you just have some beetroot extract or something to get your blood flow going, boom. Next minute, you're going to be like, well, this is fucking fantastic. I feel great. I'm thinking amazing. And you see how you go. So magnesium deficiency is the second one. So magnesium deficiency can lower dopamine levels. And experts estimate over half of Americans, as in the study, don't get enough magnesium from their diet. Cacao powder, dark chocolate, ceremonial grade cacao, all that good stuff, a lot higher in magnesium if you want to up that, as well as your dark green leafy vegetables, or get a really good magnesium supplement. So most common symptoms of magnesium deficiency is like salt or carb cravings, high blood pressure, constipation, rapid heartbeat, sore muscle, fatigue, headaches, poor mood, or anxiety. So if you've got any of those, you might just need some magnesium, make y'all feel better. Vitamins. So the antioxidants contained in vitamins like vitamin C and vitamin E protect the brain neurons that use dopamine. So eating or supplementing with the right amount of vitamin nutrients for you can help protect neurons from free radical damage and ensure an ample supply of key nutrients needed for healthy cognitive function. As before, we had that definition of nootropics, which was supplements or drugs or substances that are claimed to improve cognitive function, particularly executive functions, memory, creativity, or motivation in healthy individuals. So that's that healthy thing out there again. So vitamins, and you're having in your diet the right amount of vitamin C and E. You might not even know you're getting those almonds in and feeling real good, and you're getting your citrus and your leafy greens and your bell peppers in, and next minute you're like, I feel great all the time. It's like, yeah, because your brain's working good, man. Like your brain is working good. And also, I would say for vitamins, the other extra one for this would be omega-3s. So your brain runs hard off omega-3s. Like before plant ceremony sessions, like before people jump into ayahuasca and all these different things, sometimes they'll make people eat wild caught Atlantic salmon, whatever it is, wild caught salmon 3 times a day without anything that's going to damage, and make them put on a really good high quality omega-3 supplement to heal their brain. It heals your hippocampus, like fixes your reptile brain, literally heals that, because what happens is that part of your brain gets bigger the more you're exposed to trauma and fear, and you want it as small as possible. So omega-3 helps heal all of that, which is crazy. So you just want to make sure you're in a really high omega-3 diet as well, just for optimal brain performance. Nothing against omega-6s. Everyone says you need a good balance of all, but like just in general, with our normal diet and how it is, we don't have really good omega-3 supplements. I like using krill oil, or at the moment I'm trialing this like a fish oil, but it's a really high quality one with a really high quality omega-3 content in there. And I had a little bit before I had the bone broth and the matcha, and yeah, I feel bloody great. So peak mental performance begins with good nutrition, as I've just been saying. The brain requires an extensive amount and wide range of micronutrients for proper cognitive function. Without the right amount of these essential nootropic vitamins and minerals, our cognitive power can fade while overall brain health weakens. So especially if we're using nootropics as a mask, right? What that's going to do is just increase backwards momentum big time. It's going to mask, you're going to desensitize stuff, it's going to make everything worse. So it's crazy when you think about that. So like if you're not optimal and then you're using nootropics, it's going to make everything shit. But if you're optimal and you're using nootropics, it's going to make everything better. Hence the term for supplements are supplementary. I love using that term. If you listen to my sup podcast, I talk about it, because they should only be used like a little bit of pepper or a little bit of salt on like your food, but for your life. That's all it is. It's just a little bit of is all you should be using to make stuff better. Now, it's quite interesting that has said there, and that's been studied. Like if you're using nootropics and the vitamin, and you're using them without the vitamins and without the nutrients, your cognitive power will fade and your overall brain health weakens, like in general. Crazy. So you got to make sure that you're supporting it as best as possible. It's sort of like, would you go to the gym if you didn't eat, like if you weren't eating, sleeping right, and like your body was trash? You know what I mean? Like, would you be going to the gym every single day and pumping as hard as possible? No, you'd be like, you'd start breaking down, right? You need to heal yourself. Yes, fasting is handy, but I'm talking about, imagine if you didn't eat for a week and it's just, or you're just feeding yourself on Hungry Jacks and smashing the gym, right? You're just gonna, eventually you're just gonna injure yourself, fuck yourself from inflammation. It's the same thing for nootropics. But if you're eating really well and you're eating really healthy and you go to the gym, you're going to have big, healthy, stronger muscles. It's the same thing with nootropics for the brain. So poor self-regulation can destroy you. Poor self-regulation can result in weakness of will and the classic negative reinforcement of giving into feeling good. Self-regulation is essential by reflecting, journaling, knowing about yourself mentally, knowing how your insides work, your emotions, moods, brain chemistry, impulses, urges, and personality can influence your life. If you do not partake in any self-regulation exercise or activities, then experimenting with nootropics or anything like that can influence your neurotransmitters, can be quite dangerous, to be honest. So high performers and those who partake in self-development and self-regulation, who are willing to track and be responsible for their own biology, are the best people to take advantage of nootropics. So it's only the people that, self-regulation is self-reflection, understanding who you are, what you're doing, what affects you, what doesn't. It's constantly assessing yourself and being someone, he who never defends himself is the nature of a slave. But like, what do you defend? Where do you blah, 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 blah. So knowing all of those things, knowing what to defend and knowing how to defend yourself by giving yourself the best chances possible to have the best immune system, be the strongest, healthiest foundation, will be the best for you, especially when coming to using things like nootropics. So self-regulation failure may manifest as emotional eating, binge drinking, shopping sprees, problematic gambling, procrastination. In hindsight, get your shit together and then go out there and fucking crush it. And that'll be the best time for you to use some nootropics. Be aware of overall neuroexcitatory effect. So neuroexcitatory is exactly what it sounds like. When your brain is meh, like nicotine is a good example. Sends your brain going crazy. Everyone's seen that advert ages ago with our kids, the nicotine advert when someone had some nicotine and all the little things in the brain were just like, going crazy. This effect relates to the feeling of pure mental stimulus. The best nootropics for high performance are not the ones that make you feel awake. They are the ones that allow you to get into a high memory, learning and decision-making brain for long periods of time. These nootropics are a good blend of being healthy, using fasting. So this is like kind of like a prioritization on what to do first prior to getting into nootropics. So being healthy, using fasting, eating high quality fats, using nitric oxide boosters, and then mindfully adding in some healthy nootropics and staying away from the too excitatory ones. I can't say excitatory ones. It's definitely like the synthetic ones like modafinil, Ritalin, Adderall. They're basically all the same thing. The following study quotes, "This review explains how the main class of cognitive enhancing drugs affect the learning and memory circuits and highlights the potential risks and concerns in healthy individuals, particularly juveniles and adolescents. We emphasize the performance enhancement at the potential cost of brain plasticity." So brain plasticity is like how flexible your brain is. And when it's rigid, it's very hard for you to focus, study, be open to new ideas. When it's plastic, you're very good at learning things. It's kind of like you're all lubed up and smooth in your brain, and it's your mind, and it's how you think and how you make decisions and learn and stick to things like crazy. Tune in here, guys. Listen, I'm just going to mention here, stay with me while I'm saying all of this stuff. We are in deep right now, so keep this flow going, keep this learning going, listen to all of this good stuff. So neuroplasticity, that is associated with neural ramifications of nootropic drugs in the healthy developing brain. So this was just a study that showed through not just like, it was not really using the healthy nootropics, but all of the other ones, just to say that essentially they weren't good. And they were affecting the learning and memory circuits, highlighting potential risks and concerns in healthy individuals, particularly juveniles and adolescents. We emphasize the performance enhancement at the potential cost of brain plasticity that is associated with the neural ramifications of nootropic drugs in the healthy developing brain. So this is just to be careful of, warnings before getting into stuff. Especially this is for more of the higher type ones like the citidine, modafinil, nicotine, caffeine, Adderall and Ritalin. So sometimes nootropics can simply be too much, especially for the development and neuroplasticity of the brain. These largely relate to the synthetic nootropics like modafinil, Ritalin, and not so much the natural and herbal ones. The following study quotes, "Our objective is to raise awareness among physicians in general and psychiatrists and addiction specialists, in particular of the potentially dangerous phenomenon of unsupervised nootropic use among young adults who may be especially vulnerable to nootropics' negative effects." So just be careful is all, especially if you're going to use the naughty ones or the those bad boys. I actually like to call those the sometimes nootropics. So next title I've got here is called "Nootropics Don't Do Anything," and they goddamn won't if you don't use them properly. So before even using nootropics, it is of most important to get your brain and body at peak performance and peak neuroplasticity first. And you can do that through fasting, being healthy, getting the right fats in there, training like crazy, adding in a lot of cardio, doing saunas, doing ice baths, making sure you get in your head underneath those things, learning, studying, reading, journaling, reading difficult books, doing brain exercises, going out crushing stuff, being positive. Meditating is so damn good for this stuff. Do that first. Give your mind and body the best chances possible to get after it and feel amazing, and then add a little sprinkle of nootropics on top and feel even better. Otherwise, nootropics are just like putting a soggy band-aid over a wound and potentially infecting it and making it goddamn worse. But you think the wound is okay because you put a shitty soggy band-aid on it. Analogy out of 10. I'm going to say that again. Nootropics are like putting a soggy band-aid over a wound and potentially infecting it and making it worse, even though you think that the wound is okay because you put a shitty band-aid over it. So that is just like, if you're not super healthy and using nootropics, be careful. This is what happens when people feel like they need something. Oh, I need a coffee. Oh, I need a nootropic. Oh, I need some Adderall. Oh, I need some modafinil. I need it. If you feel like you need something, you are soggy band-aid. Soggy band-aid if you need it, right? when you know you do not need any of these things, you feel great already. You feel good when you don't need them. You always feel good. You can get into high performance flows at least once or twice a day because you're just focusing. You just start doing your work. Oh, I'm in a flow right now. This is great. You eat, sleep, drink, move, and hydrate well. Then now it's time to start experimenting with these bad boys. Once you're doing that and you feel like you don't need anything, then use them. Oh man, boom. So good. Am I guilty of soggy Band-Aid syndrome? 100%. Sometimes I'll use them for sure. And then I forget. Reset myself, stop using it right now. I'm on a no caffeine. The only caffeine that I will take is if it's from I Thrive Organics matcha. That is it. Other than that, I'm just decaf lord right now. But I'm staying away from all caffeine, get really caffeine sensitive for 3 weeks. Then I'll add slowly maybe 1 or 2 in a week because I was every day for a while and I need to cut that. So possible stimulant drawbacks. The true benefits of stimulants for attention are often short-lived, followed by a reliable, fast-acting crash. Some stimulant benefits may even degenerate into harsh long-term side effects when engaged too frequently. Stay with me, guys. We're into it right now. Listening, caps on your head. Be aware that most nootropics will take tomorrow out of today. Always remember that. So, and there is possible stimulant drawbacks. Like caffeine, you're going to crash if you take too much, or the next day you're going to feel shit and you feel like you need to have another one and then see you later. Brain neurochemicals and pathways. So there's 5 main pathways. Thinking caps the fuck on right now, guys. Chuck them on your head. The 5 main pathways are acetylcholine, which also, like nicotine, use acetylcholine. Adenosine, dopamine, GABA, and serotonin. They're your nootropic pathways. They're the chemicals and your neurotransmitters in your brain. The main ones that use it. It goes way deeper, but these are the main ones. So the acetylcholine is a neurotransmitter which is known as ACH, which plays a leading role in alertness, focus, memory, and mood. Acetylcholine also contributes to the neuroplasticity that supports long-term potentiation needed to form long-term memory and for a healthy optimized brain. How good? So acetylcholine pathway, big old tick. You want to manage that. How do you manage that? There are 4 supplements you can use: alpha GPC, choline bitters, choline citrate, and CDP choline. Where does choline come from? Eggs. The best source of choline comes from eggs. Duck eggs, chicken eggs. So just be aware of that. Thinking caps on right now. You think, holy shit, that is amazing. So yes, but you can get supplements with them. And you can get vegan supplements for choline, which is really, really handy. Acetylcholine cannot be taken as a supplement, like itself, acetylcholine. You take choline as a supplement. Eggs have the most amount of choline, right? So choline converts into acetylcholine, and the supplements that you can take are like vegan choline. Eggs have the most amount of choline, and there's like alpha GPC, choline bitters, choline citrate, and CDP choline all get converted into acetylcholine. You can only provide the juice from liquid or a sup into your body and brain so your body can convert it, like eggs, blah blah blah. Cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, beef, liver, chicken, salmon's real good. High amounts of choline. It is needed for your body for liver function, brain function, development of your nerve function, muscle movement, cellular energy, and metabolism. So you want to be getting some choline in your diet. Choline assists in the methylation involved in genetic expression and the repair of DNA, nerve signaling, and detoxification. Detoxifies your body, repairs your damn nerves. You know what damaged nerves do? Make cancer. So choline, super important. See, some of these, like, that's why the natural stuff is just so good. Choline benefits cognition by supporting memory, learning, attention, and focus, brain energy, brain regeneration, and muscular performance. Huge. There's some studies later I'll get into for muscular performance and like taking alpha GPC. It's fucking crazy. Literally, someone's bench press improved by like 14%. And people's memory and stuff, whatever, is improved by like 40% just on alpha GPC. Nuts shit. Oh, growth hormone increased 40%. Holy shit. Crazy studies. Choline is one of the best supporters for brain enhancement and for cognition, and is acquired through food. However, there are some sups that provide an extra boost for this. Nicotine receptors are also linked to acetylcholine receptors, and the majority of other nootropics also activate these pathways, but mostly the natural nootropics. So nicotine is sort of the naughty way of activating some of these things, but there's not choline, so you're not going to get human growth hormone boost. You're not going to be able to lift heavier in the on your bench press. It's just going to be brain activity going all crazy. So yes, that's why I think acetylcholine and making sure having the choline supplements are priority. Like they're the best. Adenosine pathway. So adenosine is essentially your sleepy time chemicals and pathways. Caffeine, what it does is it blocks adenosine, which keeps you up all night, stops you and prevents you from getting to sleep. Alcohol does this too. What? Blocks your adenosine pathways. Adenosine also makes up ATP and ADP. So ATP is like when you move, sprint, bench press, do whatever. Your body fires off ATP. And it stands for adenosine triphosphate. Adenosine is that way. So you want as much as adenosine as you want. And it's very natural. Before sleep, if adenosine is activated, melatonin is going to be activated. And where does melatonin come from? It comes from serotonin, helps you get sleep. Interesting. Anyway, it reduces the activity of type 1 dopamine, allowing your brain to feel tired. So interesting. Adenosine triphosphate helps your body move. It's the inhibitory neurotransmitter, meaning it acts as a central nervous system depressant, calms you down, makes you get to sleep, suppresses arousal, as in like, oh, I'm aroused, I'm ready to go. Blah, blah, blah. Protecting your adenosine using particular supplements to increase adenosine after using stimulating nootropics can be beneficial. So that's why I'm mentioning this. If you're using stimulation, you're using different nootropics, you know that like caffeine's going to be blocking your adenosine, have it in the morning, don't have it at night time. You want your adenosine to come up later at night. Unless you're pulling an all-nighter to crush work, then obviously you can use that. But yes, extremely important to understand all of those things. And as I said, I have a podcast and an article on coffee and caffeine, which could help you out heaps for all these different things. You just got to go back and listen to them. The main pathway, dopamine. So there are essentially two types of dopamine pathways nootropics influence. These are the main ones that they influence, and that is the type 1, stimulating. Increasing energy, feeling of awake and alertness. Usually substances convert and break down into or upregulate glutamic acid or dopamine like caffeine, nicotine, and citidine. So all of those things, boom. Type 1 dopamine goes crazy. Type 2 is your zen and focus. So type 1 is stimulating. Type 2 is your zen, focus, high performance. So type 2 increases brain activity, memory, attention, impulse control, learning, and flow states. So things like L-theanine, GABA, CDP choline, acetylcholine. So those choline things, GABA, L-theanine, eggs and matcha, so good. So here's I'm just going to go deep real quickly. So thinking cap on right now while I go over this dopamine stuff. This is some of the most important shit you can know. Thinking cap on, guys. Perk up. Sit up straighter. We'll get there. A little bit of move. Quick stretch. I'm going to start thinking again. Take some choline. Take some nicotine, get ready to start thinking about some of this good stuff. All right, so there are 5 dopamine pathways, and they're called D1, D2, D3, D4, D5. Now, D1 and D5 essentially do the same things. They're the type 1 pathways that I mentioned. So D1 is memory, attention, regulation of your kidneys, adrenal glands, locomotion, decision-making, cognition, attention, and renin secretion. That's like adrenaline stuff. The type 2 dopamine pathways are D2, D3, and D4, which is locomotion, attention, sleep, memory, learning, cognition, impulse control, attention, sleep, cognition, impulse control, attention, sleep. And so they group together, D1 and D5, D2, D4. But essentially how you want to know it is that D1 and D5 is like you're alert, you're awake, you're up, off you go, pump up your adrenal glands, get your memory working, which is good. You make high decisions. You like making decisions, cognition, attention, boom, boom, boom. So that does come with the type 1 dopamine pathways. Type 2, which is D3 to D4, which is that high performance zen, get into a flow state, right? So now I'm just going to refer to the different pathways as type 1 and type 2. Type 1, stimulating. Type 2, zen, right? So what I'd like you to understand here is that dopamine can affect your brain in multiple different ways. It can, you can be calm and focused state, and you can also be in a hyper and alert state. Stay with me, guys. Dopamine is a precursor for noradrenaline in the sympathetic nervous system. Now, if I talked about sympathetic nervous system, that's your stress system when your body's in a stressed, heightened, need to get cranking. So when dopamine 1's activated, sympathetic nervous system's activated, noradrenaline gets activated, which is adrenaline, which gets pumped from your kidneys, which is your cortisol, which is your stress hormone. So it all works in one sort of way together. This means when dopamine pathways are activated, especially the type 1 pathways, it's more like your body will start using adrenaline and you get a bit of a rush, and your adrenaline's pumped from your kidneys, and then your cortisol gets pumped and your stress hormone gets released, and then your body is stressing. Woo, yeah, let's go. The graph, I have a graph here below that kind of shows what's going on, and basically how the graph is explained is that like it's like an optimal function for dopamine and cognition. And basically, it's like you got a graph with the line at the bottom and the arrow pointing, and you got the line at the top, and then there's like a big semicircle that starts like in the first corner and it goes up really high and then it goes back down again. So it's like an upside down U shape. At the bottom is distracted, impulsive, hyperactive, poor judgment, impaired working memory. And then the more your dopamine and norepinephrine increase, the higher your cognition increases. Up to the point where you have optimal cognition, your focus, you're attentive, good judgment. But if you take too much caffeine, too much nicotine, too much of that shit, you're going to be distractible. You're going to be impulse, you're going to be inattentive, you're going to be hyperactive, you're going to have, you'll be stereotypes of cognitive inflexibility. So you'll be too stimulated is essentially what it means, and your cognition decreases. And also what happens with that is that like if you're not using the right foods and you get chronically sleep deprived or you lose sleep because of that, it's because you're too damn stimulated. Norepinephrine definition, or noradrenaline, is the attention chemical associated with sleep cycle regulation, peaking during states of stress or activity. Stress or activity, baby. So we want to make sure that is well balanced. You don't go over the top. Too much dopamine will do that. Epinephrine, or the adrenaline, fight or flight chemical, increases blood flow to the muscles, heart rate, or blood sugar levels. That's why caffeine can be so good for exercise performance, right? So type 1 dopamine pathway activators, which also activate those adrenaline things: caffeine, sugar, nicotine, naughty nootropics like racetams, Adderall, modafinil, Ritalin, and most synthetic uppers that can really overstimulate you. It is important to note that due to 2021 westernized world, it is easy to already be dopamine D1 addicted already, just to like caffeine and just like being on our phones, not getting good enough sleep, not having time for meditation. Because the more we get into our prefrontal cortex and our blood flow brain, the more we can spend in there. So if we're getting there, I say at least once a day meditate, at least do these things so we can go in and make these really good decisions. Get used to that blood flow. It's like a muscle. Your brain's a muscle and different parts of it get flexed. So you want to get that really good. So it's very easy. So a lot of the time we're type 1 already addicted to dopamine because, literally every time that, we make a decision, dopamine gets released. Every time that we're on social media, dopamine gets released. So really important to note. So what is so interesting to look at is that the majority of natural nootropics like Bacopa, Moneri, which is like a really popular, it's like all of the nootropics, down-regulate type 1 dopamine and enhance type 2. What? Matcha down-regulates dopamine. Well, matcha is a bit different. L-theanine in matcha down-regulates type 1 dopamine and enhances type 2. So one thing that's so important about matcha, it's got that really good natural caffeine in there as well. So even though it deregulates dopamine, it's got enough caffeine just to bring it up. So you have the high from the type 2 Zen focus, high performance, and the little bit of a bump from the caffeine to get you your dopamine 1 pathways up as well. Oh, how good is that? Is matcha the most ultimate nootropic ever? Who knows? I thought organic. What up? Anyway, really handy to have. If you're having a coffee or two, make sure you get that type 2 stuff in there as well. It's going to down-regulate some stuff, down-regulate the too jittery stuff, and up-regulate the type 2 Zen high performance. So some type 2 dopamine pathway activators are, thinking caps on here. What can you do to get those type 2 pathway activators happening? Meditation, exercise, sunlight, L-theanine, ginseng, Bacopa moneri, uridine, forskolin, matcha, rhodiola, ginkgo biloba, lion's mane mushroom, CDB choline, citicoline, acetylcarnitine, cordyceps, tyrosine, and N-acetylcysteine. So you've got all of those different things there. Sauna and ice bath as well. I'd probably chuck them in there too. So yeah, super important to know. Also, buddy Kettle just rocked up. He's the one who bought me this. What's up, Kettle?
What's going on, guys?
I said just jump on while we're on here in this Nootropic podcast. And I was like, dude, if you have any questions about the shit, I'm already halfway through, just sing out because it might help some other people as well. So say hi, Kettle.
Hey guys, how's it going?
My man. So GABA pathways is the next one. So I've just been talking about dopamine pathways, acetylcholine pathways, those two. And I'm on at the moment to GABA pathways. And if you want to know what GABA is, GABA receptors are essentially the molecule or the amino acid GABA, which has its own role in the brain. And these receptors can switch on as to like fire something on or off. Like that's what GABA receptors do. They're going to go, let's fire this shit here on or fire this shit off. By the way, can you show everyone your hat real quick? This is About Wellbeing podcast on there, baby. What up? Sponsored, yeah. These receptors can switch so they basically fire things on and off. So having GABA and the right amount of GABA in your brain is super, super, super important. Now, the thing is what GABA can be really useful for is going to sleep. It's usually used as a sleep supplement. Now, if you have adequate GABA in the brain, what it does is it's going to help you switch off, which is like really important. And it's basically a molecule in the brain which is considered to be an inhibitory neurotransmitter. So as much as we're using like all these caffeine and these uppers and these dopamine things, we have these neurotransmitters, inhibitory transmitters like adenosine and GABA, which can help us calm the fuck down so that we can like get a good sleep and make sure that our brains are regenerating really well. So it blocks or inhibits certain brain signals and decreases the activity of your nervous system. So it's a parasympathetic nootropic, basically gets you into the rest and digest state. When GABA attaches to a protein in your brain known as a GABA receptor, it produces a calming effect which can help the feelings of anxiety, stress, or fear. And what that does is we like to call it gives you GABA tingles, and you feel fucking like really tingly when you like, if you have the pure GABA. Did I bring it in here? No, I'm not. I've just got the tyrosine in here. So fun fact, GABA helps uptake. So this is why it's really good for sleeping, right? So GABA helps the uptake of magnesium, and magnesium helps support GABA. So it's a really healthy cycle there. So that's why people say, take magnesium before bed. Why is that? Because it helps uptake GABA. L-theanine also helps uptake GABA big time. So magnesium, L-theanine, GABA, beautiful supplements to take before sleep. So what does GABA do? So it has calming effects in your brain, reduces mental and physical stress, eases the feelings of anxiousness, decreases muscle tension, creates a calmness of mood, supports balanced blood pressure, helps to induce sleep, and increases human growth hormone. How good. And essentially, we want as much human growth hormones we can damn well get all the time. We want to be growing, having all that stuff, because human growth hormone is like the anti-aging hormone. So supplements for GABA. So GABA, you can take it itself as amino acid. So kava, magnolia bark, valerian root, and you can have that in a tea. I literally just got some valerian root and I'm so goddamn excited. I forgot to have it last night. I'm gonna have some tonight. Skullcap, which are types of mushrooms, lemon balm, passion flower, black seed oil, ashwagandha, L-theanine, matcha and green tea, magnesium, which binds to the GABA receptors, and serotonin can increase GABA activity. So serotonin precursors like tryptophan and 5-HTP can also increase GABA in the brain. You just want to be careful though, with tryptophan and 5-HTP with the serotonin. You're going to be real careful with that. So the most important thing to know about serotonin is essentially that you want to handle these nootropics with care. The tryptophan and 5-HTP, they are for you or they are not for you. So essentially, if you've had a big night on the drugs on MDMA and your serotonin is reduced, or gin or alcohol, and then you have because alcohol uses a shitload of serotonin as well. If you have those things and then have some tryptophan or 5-HTP, a lot of time it's going to replenish all of your serotonin. So that can really help out there. So being strict with cycling, like tryptophan or 5-HTP is really important. Like having a week on, week off, 2 days on, 5 days off, whatever it is. 1 day a week can be really handy, better for you to use. Serotonin nootropics are essentially mood enhancers. Serotonin causes happiness, and a lack of serotonin causes damn depression. So if serotonin receptors are healthy in your brain, you can use serotonin well. So it's not like you actually need it if you've got healthy serotonin receptors in your damn mind or your damn brain. If the receptors have been damaged or overused or are not as healthy, your body can't use serotonin as well, which can increase the chance of feeling depressed, unhappy, unmotivated, or moody. So sometimes people just be like, I'll just get this goddamn 5-HTP or tryptophan instead. It's like, it's never going to work because your serotonin's been overused. It's a little bit damaged. You need to heal that first before even using any of this stuff. So serotonin is a neurotransmitter used from the amino acid tryptophan. The human body cannot make tryptophan, so you must get it from the food you eat. And the most abundant is meat, fowl, and cherries is where you can get it from. So to be on the safe side, suggest, and turkey's got the most actually, is like for fowl they use for birds, so turkey's actually got the most. To be on the safe side, I'd actually suggest not using tryptophan or 5-HTP, as they just maybe potentially have too much serotonin, and then you start crying, or it's just going to burn your receptors or something. So generally our serotonin will get used naturally, as it would most likely to do. The effect of using dopamine nootropics can enhance serotonin naturally. So dopamine affected nootropics can enhance serotonin naturally. Stay with me, guys. We're in the crux of it now. We're not too far off. We're in the chunk. We're not too far off. Especially if you're getting things done and feeling good and proud of yourself with your performance. So when you're feeling proud, when you're using the dopamine and it's all working for you, blah, 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 serotonin is going to get released naturally. So you can use sups and foods like low doses of vitamin B6, vitamin D, omega-3 fatty acids, and L-theanine, which may allow you to best regulate and give yourself the best chance to allow a really good serotonin flow. So B6 is a great neural stimulator. It's one of the best things you can use as like a nootropic, like an all nootropics, like the blends. A lot of the time they have B6. Vitamin D helps like the serotonin get fluctuated through your brain. Omega-3 neuroplasticity, L-theanine is going to get to that high performance state and give yourself the best chance to let your serotonin flow in naturally, which is what we want to do. So that is the big chunk of the sciencey stuff. We're going to get into some of the good stuff now. Do not skip. Stay in. You've made it this far. You're absolutely killing it, crushing it. Super proud of you. So before even trying nootropics, try a NOS booster like beetroot extract or citrulline malate. Like try some of those first before even getting into it. So this simply allows more blood flow to get into your brain. And if you eat well and your digestion is good and you choose brain-rich, high-choline foods like eggs, duck eggs, salmon, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower in your diet, then you've just increased all of that goodness to get into your brain times 10. Times 10, like the blood flow. This stuff is fucking crazy. So this means better dopamine, type 1 and type 2 activation, acetylcholine, serotonin, and GABA boost to all happen simultaneously just from having a NOS booster, right? So it's like, you know, what do you even use nootropics for? Just get healthy and eat your beetroots. So you could try using a natural or amino-based NOS booster for like a week or a month, like citrulline malate. There's a whole bunch of other ones out there too. Allow your body and brain to reset and get sensitive again. I've got one of my clients doing that, absolutely loving it. So if you're reading this and your routine is weak, you experience regular sadness or depression, you find it hard to stick to a meal, exercise, and sleeping schedule, please sort that out first, because you've got your work cut out for you. What do you think about that, Kettle?
Yeah. Also, with the beetroot powder, you can also use it before training because it helps to increase the blood flow.
Boom. Or sex.
Or sex as well. Definitely helps.
Yeah. So what I've been doing recently is I've been mixing beetroot powder and citrulline together.
Yeah.
I used it last week. I was getting super lean recently, and I was like, well, I'm not going to use like any food, so I'll try some of this instead, bro. And I was like super lean and depleted, but I just felt so pumped and so delicious in the gym. I was like, fucking duh.
Yeah.
It was great. It was fucking great. If you have anything as well, just sing out, bro. All those symptoms. Also, yeah, NOS boosters are great. You just that your body will get sensitive to them after a while. So once they're sensitive, have some time off and get onto them again. Good stuff. So all those symptoms are causing unhealthy brain pathways and non-optimal neurotransmitter levels, which means your nootropics are going to be void. So as I mentioned beforehand, if you're reading this, your routine is weak, you experience regular sadness, depression, you find it hard to stick to a meal, exercise, or sleeping schedule, nootropics, void, won't work too well. So as well, now I'm telling you all of this stuff, nootropics are so overwhelming. When you start diving into this research and all this stuff, you're like, fuck, what do I use? Because there's like a billion supplements. It's crazy. There are so many different types and uses for nootropics and that do certain different specific things. You're like, fucking hell, it's like going into a zoo right here. I don't know what to do is going on. So here's some advice for you. So certain nootropics may need to be balanced out with other nootropics in order to work properly. So you got to find the ones that are specific to you. So certain nootropics will affect your energy, mood, alertness, focus compared to others. Others will do nothing. Others will make you feel numb from emotion. Like sometimes ashwagandha can do that. Really handy to know. Others can make your brain healthy. Some can make your brain weak. Some nootropics recharge you. Others drain you. The message I want to get across is be mindful with your nootropics. Make the right decisions. Don't just go, I'm going to try this. I'm going to try that. Have a research and look on there first. Know your stuff. Know your blood tests. Know your DNA. Know what's going to work best for you. And then go out and use the ones that are going to make you ultimate. Turn you into All Might from fucking Hero Academia. So for the love of God, keep an eye out for what makes you feel good and what makes you feel like shit. Especially if I take a beetroot, it makes me feel good, I'm going to keep goddamn using it. So note that different nootropics also work for you for different periods of time. As your body's constantly updating and changing, your bacteria is changing, you're growing, getting older, different routines, different environmental, different stresses, the different nootropics you're going to need. So some may benefit you greatly for 6 months and then stop working as your body and brain chemistry changes and grows. So will the fuel and use of some nootropics. So you've got to be aware, like it's constantly adapting, right? So first thing you can do is assess yourself on your mood, alertness, focus, zen, wiredness, overstimulation, memory, and learning. That's what you want to think about. Every time you take a new nootropic, mood, alertness, focus, zen, wiredness, overstimulation, memory, and learning. And if one of those isn't too far on one end, then like, hey, you've probably found a good one. If you're too zen or if you're too overstimulated or you're falling asleep, then you've taken too much, whatever it is. So give yourself a try, and if you need to, give yourself a score on them. It depends how self-aware you are. I mentioned with that self-regulation stuff before, super important. So you'll start to realize as well what activates type 1 dopamine pathways and what activates type 2 dopamine pathways. So immediately just sort of looking at what I've got here, tyrosine is essentially just the juice to a bunch of them. So I'm like, this is going to activate either or. Well, these are all natural ones, so it's not going to, except for this. So the only one that I've got here, caffeine or the R-Thrive Organic Matcha, is going to activate some type 1 dopamine. But it's handy to know what does both. So I would write on this bag of matcha, type 1 and type 2. Bone broth, type 2. Beetroot powder, blood flow, neural nectar I've got here, that kettle got me, thank you bro, would definitely all be pretty sure all type 2. Tyrosine is the juice, and then the Panax ginseng type 2. So I'd be putting like all of those just to know what you're actually activating. So in terms of how to use nootropics, use the single nootropics first. See how you react, choose what works well for you, make up for sleep using anti-stims, and get to bed early. Note that you're taking tomorrow out of today if you're taking too many, and then take time to resensitize your dopamine receptors. I mean, especially if you're drinking on the weekend, if you're going out and you're racking a fucking shitload of lines, some shit, having heaps of caffeine, like literally if you're having like multiple, I went for a few cups of coffee, note that by Monday, like your dopamine receptors burnt off. So below are some of the main rules when following assessing nootropics. So here we go. Don't mix central nervous stimulating nootropics unless absolutely necessary. So if you're using like a caffeine one, do not mix caffeine and modafinil as an example. Or you rest and reset the day beforehand and get the day off after. If you know that you've got a massive day off, like if Saturday was a big work day, had stuff, caffeine, modafinil, but you just know that Friday and Sunday, you're doing nothing. Try not to use too many type 1 dopamine nootropics after midday or period. High performance states and flow states usually come when you are present and your brain is neuroplastic. This means you want to take advantage of type 2 dopamine nootropics. You don't necessarily have to get a buzz on. You can do that with meditation and a few other things. Nootropics are a supplement to a healthy body and mind. It may be pointless to use nootropics unless you optimize yourself first and you've got good self-regulation. Nootropics can enhance brain benefits of a lower carb diet. Absolutely. Get high quality fats, omega-3s, make your brain ultimate. Stick to a natural and healthy single strain nootropics to find your ultimate potion for yourself. Try to use fat soluble mix or nootropics with fats like a bone broth to get the most out of them. Quality fats transport nutrients into your brain. Try using fasting and high quality fat diet prior to nootropics using MCT oil, bone broth, eating lots of salmon, walnuts, berries, and dark green leafy vegetables first. I have a link for how to fast because I've got a fasting program. You can click on the link in the article. You can do that. It's very cheap. Like the whole program teaches you from head to toe how to bloody fast. And the second one is the link for bone broth discount. You get 12% off on my discount. Now, if you didn't listen to all of that, go back 15 seconds or back 30 seconds and listen to all those damn things again. Like attention on. Listen to them again. Get onto it because that is extremely important. Those 8 facts there, they're written down in the article if you need. So most nootropic potions, must know nootropic potions for you. So here's some must knows, right? Put your thinking caps back on, guys. We're so close. So after you've completed the Braverman's test, a personality test, a blood test, a stress analysis, work-life balance, and a goal assessment, you should have a great idea of what you need for high performance and how your brain works. I recommend finding 3 nootropic potions that are going to be the best for you. Take advantage of them. So 1, your Zen type potion. So this would be the most important one and potion to use and find. Type 2 dopamine using for your memory, access, flow. A hack for this would be practicing meditation prior to taking the potion, because when you meditate, blood flow gets into your prefrontal cortex. So doing reading, journaling, reflective writing, meditating, and then having the potion, it's going to get you absolutely pumping. Example for this would be like using L-theanine, ginkgo, mushrooms, bacopa, or matcha. Berberine, astragalus, ginseng variations, tyrosine, keto salts, MCT oil, choline supplements, and Chinese herbs. I like mixing tyrosine with keto salts. Keto salts put you in ketosis. Ketones are running crazy. It's just crazy. It's just increasing your brain activity. Tyrosine is the juice to dopamine in general. It's either going to go to type 1 or type 2, but tyrosine is what it's made out of. And so if your brain activity is going nuts and you have ample tyrosine in there, if you do a high dopamine type 1 exercise or something in your life, more dopamine is going to get released. If you're doing something type 2, that dopamine is going to get released. So it's really handy to know. But what you want to do in this is try mixing these into a bone broth. Before I did this podcast, I mixed in a bone broth. I mixed beetroot powder. I mixed the neural nectar that Kettle got me. I mixed matcha, and then I had a Panax ginseng. That was it. So matcha, bone broth, beetroot, these things. And I feel fucking crazy right now. I'm like, meh. Going off. It's great. My current example of this, you can even if you wanted to try as well, a large matcha, acetylcholine, so like alpha GPC, and maybe some tyrosine. Put that in a bone broth as well. So I do that, put a little bit of tyrosine in the bone broth. I didn't have any today, don't need it, but sometimes I put some tyrosine in the bone broth, have a couple of alpha GPC tablets, and some matcha, some I Thrive Organic matcha in there, and you feel fantastic. So the number 2 potion, thinking caps on, the next one you need would be a mix that is perfect for you. So your most ultimate potion, which just works really specific for all those tests that you've done. So it would be something that would have like, some high quality fats, mix of, but have like some dopamine type 1 and type 2 that's sorted for you. So something like an MCT oil, mushroom extracts, choline, and some matcha, something like that. It would be doing maybe like a little shot of them all mixed together, or with lemon, Celtic salt, electrolyte, something like that. Take your time to figure out what single nootropic. So for me, keto salts, tyrosine, a short black, and a bone broth. Perfect. Or even for me, like a short black, matcha and a bone broth, and some Celtic salt, something like that always works best for me. I have a little bit of caffeine, and I have some Zen stuff as well. I feel like a god. But I always feel best after having a sauna and an ice bath. To be honest, don't need one after those. So yeah. But usually for this, I'll have a black coffee with bone broth, some mushroom extracts, and maybe a little bit of tyrosine, L-theanine, or tyrosine or keto salt. So I have something like that, works literally best for me. It's just like a little bit of coffee, a little bit of other good stuff. Then the next one for you, I get, is have your next level crazy unlock potential potion. So this one should be a blend that'll get you to about 8 or 10 stimulating. If you get to 10 out of 10 stimulating, it's too much. You've gone too far, too much. About an 8. So this is something that's going to get you really hyped. So I would be using a mix of like type 1 dopamine, so like a lot of caffeine, and some NOS boosters. Big time to get you cranking. So like caffeine, matcha, NOS boosters. Or my example for me personally is a black coffee, a matcha, and some nicotine. That is what I have, and I'll just go boom.
Nicotine sends you to the fucking roof.
You didn't hear me. It was just like nicotine sends you to the roof.
It's one of those things though, you can't have too much of it.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what we said. You can't have too much. This is your unlock potential potion. Exactly. Great point. So one that which you're just going to, boom, just go crazy, and you need it for a certain period of time. I also, if you have found any amazing supplements or single nootropics or blends that work together for these godly potions and you want me to try, send me an email real quick, boutcore@gmail.com. I'd love to know. So my current most standard cognitive enhancer is on a 14-hour fast. So make sure I'm fasting first. I break it with a bone broth, chaga, lion's mane, and matcha. I use Best of the Bones bone broth. I use I Thrive Organic matcha, and I use lion's mane and chaga from either the House of Health in Central Market or the source bulkfoods.com. All the links in the article. That is my main standard one that I'm currently using at the moment. Bone broth, chaga, lion's mane, matcha. Boom, feel fucking incredible. So here are some popular nootropics. Acetylcholine is a popular one. Increases mental energy, enhances attention, concentration, and focus. Brain boosting, sparks motivation, confidence, human research, enhance attentional performance. Rhodiola rosea. So rhodiola supports positive mood by optimizing dopamine, serotonin levels. You feel good about taking on a task. Essentially, more specifically, it's an adaptogenic. So an adaptogenic are herbs that help the body normalize body functions that are, off kilter. So more specifically, adaptogenics help the body adapt to any and all stresses, which are defined as the factors but force the body's normal physiological functioning to change. So physical stress like cold, loud noise, exhaustion, toxins, excessive sun exposure, mental stresses like mood imbalance, worrying, tension, and fear. Adaptogenics help you do that. Now, what with these main nootropics is basically in all stacks. Like all nootropic stacks will have these, so try them individually first. Tyrosine. So tyrosine converts to L-dopa, and then L-dopa goes to type 1 or type 2 dopamine. So it's essentially the juice, the fuel in the car. Tyrosine, very good. If you've got plenty in there and your brain's working fine, it's good anyway. Usually you can get it out of like aminos, like meats and stuff, but you can buy the stuff like of bulk nutrients. L-theanine, which comes from matcha, is in all goddamn stacks, and essentially it's the wakeful relaxation. It's the ultimate zen. The Japanese and Chinese zen masters would use it to meditate and figure like the secrets of the universe and the cosmos out. L-theanine eases the nervousness of the jittery side to the effects of caffeine. It literally like brings caffeine the fuck back down. So that's why green tea is so important, because it's got the perfect L-theanine and caffeine blend. So even if you have a coffee, put some L-theanine in there, you can help yourself out, help you get back to sleep. Stop your brain from getting groggy and foggy, and it makes you feel fucking incredible. I can't explain how good it makes you feel. Alpha GPC is in all the goddamn stacks. It seems to increase the chemical in the brain, acetylcholine. This brain, I went into acetylcholine before, it's good for everything, but the study increases growth hormone by 40%, so 600 milligram dose, 90 minutes prior to resistance exercise, increased post-exercise growth hormone by 40%. And peak bench press by 14%. What the fuck? Alpha GPC, neurotransmitter tied to memory and overall brain function. Alpha GPC is a precursor to acetylcholine. Basically, it is used for GABA, dopamine, serotonin, inositol phosphate, and also increased growth hormone levels. It's just ridiculous. It increases the speed and power of athletes, helps you perform better mentally and physically. Alpha GPC Ultimate, that's why it's in all the stacks. Bacopa Mineri, so this neural nectar that I got from Superfeast has this in there as well. Widely researched and valued for its versatile brain benefits. It's literally a natural big brain booster. It improves higher order cognitive function processes later get into your prefrontal cortex. That are critically dependent on the input of information from our environment, such as learning and memory. So Bacopa is fucking legit. B vitamins, so like vitamin B6 is the most important one, but basically it has this thing called catecholamine's synthesis, which is a thus reliable sources of mood and motivation. So that's like what happens as a result of vitamin B6. Super important for brain function. It's in all the goddamn supplements. The specific motivational neurotransmitter pathways facilitated by B6 is, stacked with tyrosine, GABA, norepinephrine, melatonin, all those different things. You want a healthy B6 level. B vitamins regulate various neurotransmitter conversions, including the motivation molecule dopamine. So B6, I think it binds to dopamine and makes it work really well. It helps it go through. So here, almost finished, guys. Big flex, almost finished. Thinking cap on. Here's just a huge fuck off list of nootropics. So for you to research and then decide if they work for you. So I'm going to go through my current one, then you can have a look, right? You can go into the article and have a look because there's so many there. But I'll go through what I currently have in my cupboard, right? So you guys might want to experiment with these because I am too. Tyrosine, GABA, digestion supplements, astaxanthin, GABA. I said that, got GABA in here twice. Panax ginseng, Extractum, the Pine brand. Organic fair trade freshly roasted coffee and the decaf. Oh yeah. Keto salts, sodium BHB, citrulline malate, beetroot powder, reishi, lion's mane, ashwagandha, a shitload of I Thrive organic matcha, L-theanine, passion flower, omega-3 sups, MCT oil, nicotine, magnesium, adrenal support supplements, and alpha GPC. So that'd be the main ones. They're the ones that you would gonna use for sure. And then I'll just give you the titles for the next ones, but you can look at them. We've got Natural Nootropics, Ben Greenfield's list, Naughty Nootropics, which I'll just let you know, Naughty Nootropics, you only want to be taking one of these at a time. Be very careful. That's caffeine, nicotine, modafinil, Adderall, Ritalin, and racetams. That is the naughty stuff. Be careful. Ayurvedic supplements, all the studies are out for them. They're beautiful. Natural plant extracts, amino acids, mushroom extracts, flavonoid supplements, traditional Chinese herbs and mushrooms, and choline supplements. And here's just some quick notes. So I've got some combos. So mixing forskolin, tianchi, cistanch is awesome. Mixing chamomile, triphala, which is great for digestion, which is a flavonoid, apigenin, and a mentoflavone. Combination 3, L-theanine, Tulist astragalus, which is a great combination, also mixed with homotaurine. Combination 4, Bacopa and Panax ginseng. Apparently that's one of the best ones, Bacopa and Panax ginseng. Combination number 5 for testosterone is cistanch, ginseng, magnesium, and Schisandra is how it's said. There's a replacement supplement for modafinil, and that's Corex's lab supplement. Cortex lab supplement, and it's just they got their one supplement there, which is great. And then a simple nootropic hack, which is really important as well, is lecithin. You can buy that everywhere. Sometimes it's in like big tubs to scoop shit out. It basically digests the fuck out of fats and gets your lipids going crazy. If you put like oil into water and gets with the droplets, it makes the droplets heap smaller, absorbs them in. So if you're running off fats, lecithin, super handy. And that's basically it. You want to take the nootropics with a holistic approach. You don't want to have angst. You want to be focused. You want to be comfortable. You want to be happy. You want to be symptom-free. So, you want to be immune to stress. You don't have any inflammation, no oxidative stress. And then, keep cranking. And then note that NOS symptoms are the best. So well done, guys. If you got through that, go back. You can listen to any of this stuff. So I'm just going to end you with the Frederick Nietzsche quote again. The 3 most cursed things in the world: sensual pleasure, lust for power, selfishness. He who never defends himself has the nature of a slave. Boom. You say goodbye, Kettle?
See you later, guys. Thanks for having me on here.
Featuring Kettle. Right, we're about to go train and absolutely crush some shit, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you got a shitload out of this fucking podcast. Stop looking so straight at Kettle. And enjoy, guys. The article was there for you to use. I got a couple of spelling mistakes I was reading that I'll go over. I'll fix them up. Yeah, big love. I hope you got something out of that. That is just like so much research put into one. Enjoy, crush your stuff, and fuck yeah, see you in the next one. Peace. Woo! Oh man, I'm fucked now.